The biggest misconception is that resilience, like you said, is like pushing through challenge and really pushing yourself to the point of burnout. For me, resilience is about moving from challenge to opportunity. And it's like going from suffering into thriving. It's how do you empower yourself and resource yourself enough that no matter what comes at you, you're able to step up and rise to the occasion.
Welcome to the Tech Cast, where we bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today we are joined by Clara Schroeder, ecotherapist, mental resilience trainer, and author of the book Renature: How Nature Helps Us Feel Better and Do Better. She helps high achieving leaders cultivate resilience and sustainable well-being to thrive both personally and professionally. Clara's work bridges psychology, sustainability, and purposeful leadership, empowering others to stay grounded and empowered in a rapidly changing world. She has partnered with global organizations including Microsoft, UCSF, and Women in Cloud, and brings a unique multicultural lens to her work. So, Clara, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Very happy to be here.
Okay, I'm excited to have you here. So, Clara, your journey is quite fascinating from recovering from a traumatic brain injury to becoming an ecotherapist working with a tech company. So, what was the pivotal moment that revealed to you the profound connection between nature and healing?
Yeah, so I would say I was lucky to grow up with a connection to animals. I grew up with horses and dogs. So I kind of always had that tendency to lean towards nature. And I noticed when in times of my life when I was apart from it, I would feel not quite myself or not as well. And then, as you mentioned, about when I was like 26, when my mid 20s, I experienced a traumatic brain injury. And I didn't really know if my life would ever go back to normal. And so the recovery was very difficult. And I got very lucky in a way. I feel very grateful that I recovered. And in that, because I couldn't, I like to be athletic, I like to move, and I couldn't do any of that. So part of my healing journey really was about just sitting with nature, being outside without having to move and really starting to find my wholeness again emotionally and mentally as I was healing physically through just exposure to nature, activating my senses and really building that connection with something beyond myself. And that really, you know, recovering from that injury is what made me want to share that message. I was already an ecotherapist. I'd been an ecotherapist for a couple of years by then with a wider audience. I wanted more people to feel whole and well and find that sustainable well-being that I was seeking as I was recovering physically.
Oh, wow, that's truly inspiring. So, for our audience of engineers and developers who spend most of their days indoors, focused on screens, what's the scientific basis for why nature has such a powerful impact on our mental resilience and cognitive function?
Yeah, so there's multiple answers to this, and I love the research because it's so clear. Um, for one, I'll cite a Harvard Business Review article, I think from 2023, and they studied that employees, so including people in tech, of course, who have access to like plants in their work environment. It could be fake plants, it could be real plants. Are more productive and have more team cohesion than people who don't. There's also a European think tank called Human Spaces who simultaneously found, like, measured the statistics on this. Again, people who have access to nature in their workspace, and it could literally just be micro elements of nature. I think it's 6% for productivity and 15% for creativity and well being. Like, that actually increases. And the reason for this, as you asked, is especially with the digital overload that we live in and the media overload that we live in these days. And so when we are so single focused on our computers or whatever screen we have in front of us, our brain cells are actively focusing on one thing or multiple screens. In nature, when you step outside and you, for example, go for a walk or anywhere that you have like a horizon line, it helps completely decrease the cognitive overload from that single point focus. So it's like a physiological reaction, and then because it also decreases your stress hormones, your cortisol levels, you immediately feel more relaxed. So it works on many different levels. The color green has also been proven to actively trigger relaxation and a deeper rhythm of breathing. So there's so many ways that it works. It's both an antidote to burnout. It's an antidote to, as I was mentioning, that cognitive overload that our brain isn't able to take in more information. So it really is a reset. And in that same review, and then I'll stop talking because it's just my favorite topic. In the Harvard Business Review article, they also showed that employees who go outside after their workday are more productive the next day. So it really is a whole mix, and it doesn't have to be super complicated. It can be literally just like if you have a plant somewhere in your office, you just like it works better for your cognitive system, for your brain.
Fantastic. So, Clara, you've worked with organizations like Microsoft. What does integrating nature-based practices actually look like in a high-pressure, result-driven tech environment? Also, can you share a specific example of a practice that resonated with technical teams?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I've partnered with Microsoft. I've partnered with other tech companies, including biotech, and you mentioned women in cloud, and those have all been really cool opportunities and partnerships. I'll give you an example and a story. So one time I was going to give a resilience workshop, including with nature and well-being and stress management at a biotech company. And I walk in, this is in person, and all the blinds, it was a fairly big room, and there was a whole team there, including their technical agents, and the windows were tall, and there were some trees outside. It was still a campus, right? We're on campus, and there were some plants, but the blinds were down. And the first thing I said is, let's get the blinds up. Let's let the natural light in. And it made a huge difference for the entire audience. Like everyone was just able to actually look out and just feel automatically like their well-being and stress levels just improve. So that's one small example of when I walk into these spaces, I make sure that what I'm teaching is aligned with how I'm teaching it. And in terms of the resilience piece that you mentioned, so nature is such a good teacher for that and as an example because it uses cycles, it uses regeneration, and it uses, pausing in between. Like nature is constantly moving, but also like there are cycles and seasons. And so not to get like quite literal here, but it's so important when you think of a team for people to actually pause and relate with one another with presence or with mindfulness, with, an idea of like we are a whole, and nature is always operating as a whole, and that doesn't happen if you don't bring in those images and those metaphors. So with those teams, as far as resilience, it's this idea that when the tree like breaks in the wind or moves in the wind, either it breaks down completely and then reroots and there's another one that grows, or it bounces back up and comes back. So there's so many metaphors, and I use all of that, but I also have people do like actual sensory exercises when I work with them, and it builds, like I was saying, like team cohesion, creativity increases. Like people are able to step outside of their like right now high pressure moment and step out and think about more of the big picture, more of how to move forward from this problem to the next with more resources, because we are all like nature is operating as an ecology. It's an ecological system. It's interconnected, and if you build that into your team strategy and your leadership, it kind of just answers questions that eventually come up as problems, but you're able to um, bypass that by being proactive about it. And if you
Oh,
want me to get more specific, just let me know. I'm more than happy to give examples.
Okay, so I like to talk about the term resilience. So in tech, this can mean pushing through deadlines and debugging at 2 a.m. So how do you redefine true resilience in a way that doesn't lead to burnout?
Yeah, yeah, excellent question. And I will just say that is such a big theme right now in tech. And I've worked mostly with women groups and women leadership in tech, but I see it just all over the map because it is so stress high pressure. And we've got I'm in San Francisco, so the AI boom and all the founders, going through that right now. It's intense, and I just want to say like that's normal and that's okay. Like those careers are completely valid. And it's about how do we, like you're saying, like how do we strengthen everyone's resilience so that they're able to reach their highest potential, reach those goals, whatever they are from for the team, for the company. So the biggest misconception is that resilience, like you said, is like pushing through challenge and really like pushing yourself to the point of burnout because for a long time, and this is luckily shifting in our society, burnout was almost glorified. And now we're realizing how toxic and detrimental it really is. Like some of the, big tech companies are losing top performing employees to burnout, and that's a huge issue. Not to mention the costs in medical care, et cetera, and leaves of absence. But for me, resilience is about moving from challenge to opportunity. And it's like going from suffering into thriving. It's how do you empower yourself and resource yourself enough that no matter what comes at you, you're able to step up and rise to the occasion. And I believe that every single person on a technical team will be able to do that because it already requires so much just to get there, so much work, so much ambition. Like these people are high performing, right? That's why I work with high performing individuals in the first place. And so it's about tracking. So the burnout question and the answer is you need to track where you're at on that stress continuum. And that's something that I talk about in my book is like, if you don't build in the routines and the systems for you to not fall through the cracks and let your body, unfortunately become sleep deprived and not know how to release the stress that you've increased or gathered during the day, there are like literal systems and they can be so small that can help you build those buffers, build that resilience so that you go from barely surviving to actually thriving through stress, thriving through challenge.
Great. So I'm curious about the concept of climate psychology. So for technical professionals who are building the future, how can understanding the emotional weight of the climate crisis actually help them better innovators and problem solvers?
Yeah, so there's so many ways to go about that because the people, like you said, the technical teams are innovating, right? And that's so important. And I think that we have such an opportunity in our day to day in our world to innovate for a sustainable future, to innovate so that everyone has a brighter future. And so for the technical teams, it's about, you know, obviously the jobs are super important. And for you to keep innovating and being productive and creative, you need to also take care of yourself. And so make sure that part of that equation, maybe if you like go outside and go for a walk in between your meetings, or actually, like I said, go outside after your work day and really like reset your nervous system. Nervous system is what controls your stress levels, and that's not being talked about nearly enough. um so it's about really finding those capacities to look forward and look for opportunities that are going to help you solve problems that are gonna become more and more important in the future. Like, I think that AI, I think that technology is such a solver of problem, and it's such a solution to the bigger issues, like you mentioned, climate anxiety or just anything related to climate. You have to feel empowered, and that starts with like within. The big theme in my book is the ripple effect. So if everyone believed that they had something to offer to the solution, then we would all be better off because we need to encourage everyone to step forward and share their ideas, but also their like skills. Like these are very specific technical skills that your audience has. And the more they feel empowered in that and capable and like they have something to contribute, the more they're going to move forward and solve, whether it's for their current company or a future company. Like I know so many tech companies right now that are innovating on the sustainability field. And there's a space for everyone there, right? Even if that's not what you specialize in. So we really need to get people to feel not only just empowered, but also excited to move beyond what their immediate focus is into a bigger picture, like that bigger cycle that I've been talking about when I talk about nature.
Well, amazing. So tell us, your book, Renature, what was your motivation behind writing that book? And who were the target readers you had in mind when you were writing it? And what value do you think this book actually brings to the readers?
Yeah, so I'll try and answer all your questions, but remind me if I miss one. The motivation, like I mentioned, coming out of the recovery from a traumatic brain injury, I felt like I was being given a second chance at life. And so I'd been doing my ecotherapy practice here in California, and I really saw that there was a wellness crisis in the corporate world and in the burnout space, but also a mental health crisis, like you mentioned, the climate anxiety and the climate change and how that's affecting people. Literally, there are people who are unable to work because they're too anxious or too worried or, have been affected by a natural disaster. And so I saw that there was an opportunity to take my message and my life's mission and really reach more people. So that's how I came about the book. I had always been a writer. I'm very grateful I found a publisher. So I'm answering like a societal need and also up leveling my own reach as an ecotherapist to help more people build a sustainable future, but also their own well-being through that process. So that's the motivation piece. The target audience and who I wrote it for, like I've been saying, I live in San Francisco. So if people don't know much about San Francisco, we've got Silicon Valley in the south part of the Bay, which is called San Francisco Bay, which is like innovation, AI hub right now, and on top of like the Pacific Northwest and Seattle. And I'll just speak for the US right now. But what's happening is that people are like doing these amazing innovations and are working in tech and also love the outdoors. And because we have access, we have the ocean, we have the mountains, like people here are pretty, outdoorsy. And I noticed something happening because I work in like all of these spaces. People felt disconnected. Like they felt like because they worked in tech, they couldn't, fully enjoy the outdoors, or because they worked in tech, they felt more worried about climate change or whatever. So there's that. It's called cognitive dissonance in psychology. And I really wanted people to, I wanted to present solutions through somebody's personal nature connection or connection with nature, so that that cognitive distance starts to not only shift for them but also create positive ripples for the planet. So it's about changing your own relationship with nature or cultivating it if you don't have it, so that then you become a better human, more functioning, all everything that I've basically already shared, and then it ripples out to everyone, or like their teammates, their colleagues, their friends, their families. Everyone gets inspired. Everyone feels better. You're a better person. They're better off for it. And then if everyone is benefiting from that nature connection, then it spreads to sustainable behavior, which is also what I'm really passionate about being an ecotherapist. So basically, my target audience, long-winded answer. I think I answered question number 3 as well at the same time. People who, are pretty much high achieving and are educated and care about what's happening in the world. I think that's just the baseline, and want to make a difference. Like the people who, like you've been mentioning, the innovators, the creatives, of course, the activists, but not only. Like it's everyone who has you know, a reason of being and wants to leave a better world for other people. So that's what the book is about. It's answering like, how do I do that? How do I respond to a changing world, whether it's in my work environment or also just in general natural environment.
Great, Clara. So, can you give us a simple evidence-based practice that, say, a student or a developer could do in a couple of minutes during their workday to, quote unquote, renature and reset their focus?
Yeah. So if you want, I can lead you through one right now. It's a little bit of a visualization. We can do it so that the audience can listen to it and then they can replicate it on their own. But would you like that? Is that helpful?
Sure, it sounds nice.
Okay, great. So I'll lead you through this. You're welcome to close your eyes if you're listening, or you don't have to. But first of all, even taking a deep breath. So before I lead this, I just want to say remembering to connect with your breath, like literally when we breathe in oxygen and we're exhaling carbon dioxide, we're like contributing to clean air, we're contributing to the trees. Like you
Mm.
automatically have a connection with the trees and the plants around you if you're breathing because that's the exchange chemically speaking that happens. So and we forget we are and I know I fall into this category too sometimes. We forget that we're connected to our bodies, to our breath, and that's just the starting point even for stress and burnout in general. But let's I'll take a deep breath together and maybe exhale with your mouth open and releasing any tension, and if you can feel the ground underneath your feet, remembering that the earth is there underneath you. And as you breathe out and tuning into your breath, and I'm going to close my eyes for this temporarily, and you can do the same. I want you to think of a place, maybe a place from your childhood or, a place in nature that you have been to or want to go to. Just visualize in your mind's eye, in your imagination, a place in nature that you feel drawn to. And just notice how your body starts to relax, maybe when you're thinking of this place. And so once you take yourself there and you can see what age you are, how old you are when you're there, where it is there, grass or is there mountains or a ocean? Are you in a meadow, a park? Just think back to a place outside that you really liked and felt happy in. And notice what you're doing in that place. Are you moving? Are you exercising? Are you just taking in the beautiful views? And how does your body feel while you're there? What are you noticing emotionally? Maybe there's a sense of peace, of quiet inside of you. Are there other people? Maybe there's, birds singing or animals around. Just really notice that particular space, what you're doing and how you're just being, and continue to breathe. And notice from this short exercise if anything has shifted for you physically. Do you feel a little bit more calm? Just imagining yourself in this place in nature. Maybe you're with friends, maybe you're by yourself. Do you feel a little bit more connected to the world around you? A little bit more centered in yourself? When you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Okay, I feel really, really relaxed, undisturbed. That's a really interesting activity. I don't think I've done this before, but yeah, it's really made me relax a whole lot. Interesting.
Well, thanks for trying it out with me.
All right. So I hope the listeners, get to also try this. Take a few minutes to try this out. I think it's a really great way to keep your body and soul relaxed. So, moving on, Clara, for the leaders and managers in tech listening, what's one small shift that they can make to create a team culture that values well-being and sustainability as much as productivity?
Mm. I love that you're thinking about that because I think that's also really what's missing when we talk about high pressure leadership or high pressure environments and the leadership that comes with it. Um, so there's multiple ways to answer that. I think I like to talk about embodied leadership or compassionate leadership, and I think they kind of go together. And those are some words that sometimes people aren't familiar with. But remembering that in front of you, there's a human. There, of course, there's the performing employee, and you're measuring, all those criterias as you interact with them. But there was one team leader once that said something to me, and it was so powerful. And it was that they had implemented over the time over the course of our time together, weekly check-ins before you go into output and measuring whatever the return was that they were looking for financially and productivity, etc. Just asking the question like, "How are you?" and giving each other space to give an honest answer, and that's the compassionate part that we sometimes forget that we have and share. So, it's about remembering that in front of you there's a human that has other humans around them in their lives, and that whatever is going on in their personal life could be affecting them professionally just in that moment, and not being a harsh critic or like just remembering that it's okay to sometimes be human. And I work with something that I have not mentioned, it as I also work in the kind of EMS, firefighting, like, first responder world. And those are also high pressure environments, and that's something that they always implement in their team meetings, before, like, multiple rescue scenarios, for example. They say, "Okay, what are you coming in with today?" And you can even look at the stress continuum designed by the Responder Alliance, which is green, yellow, orange, red, and that's for stress. And there's a diagram of it in my book, or you can look it up. It's called literally the stress continuum. Um, just knowing where your team is at and how you can support each other. You just asked me about team cohesion or team building. You can't be productive if you don't feel like your team has your back, or you can't be productive if you're in the red, right? If you're in the red, you should probably take a sick day. And there's nothing wrong with being in the red. Like, that's not what I'm here to teach. I'm here to help people move from orange, yellow back to green, or red to orange, or etc. Like, it's a spectrum and we all operate on that spectrum. And so it's just remembering that a leader is here to not only inspire and of course lead, right? Like we think about those results that I was talking about, but also just be a better human and then have that positive ripple effect on everyone that works with them or underneath them or whatever the structure is. So a little bit more compassion, a little bit more just like awareness of where everyone's at. It could be as simple as I mentioned as a weekly check-in, like where are you at? You don't and if people don't want to talk about it, that's just over time you change the culture. Letting someone know if you're in the green, yellow, red, or orange is like you don't even have to put words. You don't have to say, "Well, I'm feeling this today," insert emotion, right? You can literally just be like, "Hey, I'm kind of more in the orange or I'm kind of more in the yellow. Might need a little bit more extra support or whatever." So that's the human side of me that's going to answer that way every time, but I think that's how true change happens and how true team culture changes, and I'm luckily not the only one talking about this.
Wonderful. So, Clara, in your work, bridging the inner world of human psychology with the outer world of nature and technology. So, I'd like to ask, what does the word innovation truly mean to you?
Yeah, so innovation for me is about expanding beyond what you thought was possible. So true innovation is kind of taking what we know and the systems that we have and really building on those to make a difference, whatever that difference is that you want to make in the world. It's about catalyzing the human potential and everyone's individual human potential to greater heights, to greater expansion, to greater ideas, and and if basically affecting is the word I was looking for, change. You want to affect change. So innovation is, positive impact, is becoming like that more embodied leader that I was talking about.
That's an interesting one. So, for our listeners who want to learn more about your work and your book, Renature, or just generally means to contact you, what's the best place for them to go?
I would probably point them to my website, claraschroeder.com. I'm sure you'll look in the show notes, but there's like the speeches that I give there and the workshops that I lead in corporate, and also the link to my book.
Great, Clara. It's been a really, really, really nice conversation with you, and I am excited and honored to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it as well.